Hello, Algebra 1 students. Mr. Ford here with another homework tutorial. This is for 721, problems 87 through 91. We already did A at the end of first hour today, so I'm leaving it right there as a thing for you. So you can pause the video if you need to look at the notes there. But let's walk through how to do B. So what we're doing here is we're writing an exponential equation. It's got to be in the form of A times B to the x power. And it's got to go through these 2 points, 0, 4, and 2, 1. So let's think about this for a minute from a kind of an algebraic perspective. What we're going to talk about today in class, or what we talked about today in class, is that, well, right away, this point tells you that your A value is 4, because that's the y-intercept. So we kind of know that. The other thing that we get is this piece of information right there, when the point 2, 1 is on the graph. So when x is 2, that means that y is 1. So of the 4 variables that we have in our A times B to the x over here, we already know 4 of them. We know that y is 1. We know that A is 4. We know that, well, we don't know what B is. That's kind of the missing piece of this puzzle. But we do know that that's being raised to the second power because x is 2 and y is 1. And A is 4. So now the only remaining challenge is to figure out what B is. So from here, we're just going to do a little bit of algebra. We're going to start by dividing the 4 on both sides because we got to get that out of there before we can do any roots. So 4 divided by 4 is going to cancel out. 1 divided by 4 is 1/4, which equals b squared. And then the thing we're going to learn today in class, or that we did learn today in class, is that in order to get b squared by itself, you got to get the b, or you have to get the squared out of there. What we're going to do is take the square root of both sides. So you're going to go on your calculator and you're going to do the square root of 1/4. Your calculator is going to tell you probably 0.5, but I really want you to see that that is 1/2 because 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. And so now that you know that A is 4 and the B is 1/2, you can kind of write the equation. It's y equals 4 times 1/2 to the x power. And there you go. Not so bad. Just got to have an entry point or a strategy to start off. Okay, let's look at 788. Speaking of entry points and strategies. We opened up class with a couple of these today. We're going to take a look at a couple more. Really, I think the best way to think about these is with a table of values. Like for A, we know that when x is 0, y is 3. So I can set up an xy table like this. If x is 0, y is 3. And I also know that when x is 2, y is 75. So I don't know what 1 is, but I do know that 2 gives us 75. And so kind of the question here is, okay, 3 times what gives us 75? And I believe that's a times 25. And so what we want to think about here is, okay, how can I break up that multiplication of 25 into 2 equal steps? And the answer here is to take the square root of 25, which is 5. And that's times 5 times 5. 3 times 5 is 15, and 15 times 5 is 75. So this tells us everything. This tells us that A is 3, and it tells us that B is 5 from the multiplication right there. Not too bad. Let's take a look at B, which is kind of similar to the question B on the last homework assignment we had, where they gave us the 2 and the 3, but not the 0. So we don't know what the 0 is. We don't know what 1 is. But we do know that when x is 2, y is 18. So 2, 18 is on this table. And 3, 54 is also on this table. And so it becomes kind of the same question. Okay, we don't know what the y-intercept is. We don't know what A is. But we can figure out B right now because 18 times something is going to be 54. And the way we do that is 54 divided by 18, which I think is 3. And so that tells me that B has got to be 3. That's the multiplication going on there. 54 divided by 18. I suppose you could divide 54 by 18 there and get it also. Now to figure out what the y-intercept is, we have to go backwards. So we're going to divide by 3. 18 divided by 3 is 6, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. So the A in this problem is 2. There you go. And you can spot check that before you leave. Is 2 times 3 to the second power, is that equal to 18? And is 2 times 3 to the third power equal to 54? Those are things you can check before you leave the problem. You can know that you're correct by checking those answers. Now let's move on here. We're going to do another thing. We're going to evaluate each expression below. You probably need a, well, you don't need a calculator for these. Not if you think about it long enough. Cube root of negative 64. Well, with odd numbered roots, it has to be negative because you have 3 numbers. It says negative 4. I don't really have a way of explaining. I mean, what you're looking for is what number times itself 3 times is negative 64. You know it's got to be negative because a negative times another negative will give you a negative answer. It's got to be negative. And then the number itself, we actually did this twice during class today. It's 4. 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. So it's got to be negative 4. Question B is asking, okay, what number times itself 5 times is 32? Honestly, you can guess and check this, or if you know how to use the calculator, you can use math, and then the 5th option is the xth root. You can type a 5 into that, or you could go in your calculator and do 32 to the 1/5 power. This is 2, regardless of what you got. Question number 3 is very similar. It's going to be a negative number. It's similar to the first one we did because you know a negative times a negative times a negative is going to be a negative. And again, it's asking what number times itself is 3 times is going to be equal to negative 8, and that's going to be negative 2. And then here, question 4, you got the 4th root. Again, what number times itself 4 times is equal to 10,000. And since you got 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros, this is going to be a very positive 10. There it is. Okay. For question 790, we're going to practice what we did in class today. We're going to rewrite 16 to the 3/4 power as many different ways as you can. I'm just going to guide you through this. So this is, I think the key here, first of all, is to think that 3/4 can be written as 3 times 1/4. So I think one way to do this would be 16 to the 3rd power raised to the 1/4 power. Another way to do it would be 16 to the 1/4 power to the 3rd power. Now, the 4th root of 16 is actually 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 16. So this is also 2 to the 3rd power, which is also 8. And those are the 4 ways that I think you can write this expression. There are probably other ways, but that's all I really care about. 791, we're going to find the equation of a line passing through the points, 7, 16, and 2, negative 4, and then find the slope and the y-intercept. This is a review problem. Keyword, if you get talking to the text and writing along with us, line. This is going to be an mx plus b situation. So let's think about that. Y equals mx plus b before we get too far out of this. Now, we don't really know what the slope is. All we got is 2 points. So the first thing we should do is find the slope, which it's been a while for us, but hopefully it's still there in the back of your brain somewhere. Change in y divided by change in x. For the change in y divided by the change in x, what we're going to do is we're going to take the y coordinates, 16 and negative 4, and we're going to subtract them. It does not matter which order we subtract in, as long as we're consistent. So I'm going to start with 16 minus negative 4. Be very careful about that, too. For the change in x, we got to do the difference in the x coordinates. And since we did 16 minus negative 4, we have to do 7 minus 2. We have to stay consistent. The biggest problem you run into with students on these problems is they go too fast. So take time, slow down, think about it before you go. 16 minus negative 4, that's going to be 20, and 7 minus 2 is 5. And 20 divided by 5 is 4. So right away, we got the y-intercept, or sorry, not that, that's the slope. So I'm going to cap this off by saying the m is equal to 4, which is pretty cool. Now, the other part of this problem is that we actually have 2 points to work with. We have 2 points that could be x and y. And for the next phase of the problem, it does not matter which one you use. I'm going to use this one because it's got smaller numbers, although the negative 4 is going to mean we have to think about negatives, but it's okay. So you could use either one of them. You get the same answer, though. But what we're going to do is take one of these x-y pairs and plug it in for x and y. It's very similar to what we did in the first problem here today in this video. Because we know that m is 4. We found that out to begin with. We know that x is 2 when y is negative 4. Or you could use x is 7 when y is 16. It does not matter which one of these pairs you use. But we're just going to plug that information right into this equation right there. So y is negative 4. M is positive 4. X is 2. And I do not know what b is. So all I'm doing is taking, undo. All I'm doing is taking m equals 4 and plugging it in right there. And I'm taking x equals 2 and plugging it in right there. And I'm taking y equals negative 4 and plugging it in right there. And all we have to do now is solve this for b. So let's do those steps. -4 is equal to 4 times 2, which is 8, plus b. And all I would do now is subtract the 8 from both sides. Those cancel out. You get -12 equals b. And if you had plugged in 7 and 16 for x and y, you would still get -12 for b. Does not matter. So you're still good. So there we go. We found the slope right here. We found out the y-intercept right there. So writing the equation becomes really easy. The equation is going to be y equals 4x minus 12, and that is the equation. Before you leave, it's probably worth plugging in 7 for x and confirming that you get 16 for y. 4 times 7 is 28, and 28 minus 12 is, in fact, 16. So it works for the other set of coordinates also. There you go. Along the way, I didn't explain how it happened, but we did talk about the slope and the x and y intercepts. So it's all there. Do not forget this. This is a really easy thing to do, and we've been doing it all year long. You'll continue to do it into next year and Algebra 2 also. So keep up. You can do it. It's all about finding an entry point for yourself. So believe in yourself. You can do this. I'll see you in the next video.